Planned giving is what I call the ultimate act of stewardship. So, planned giving, if a person has not been a good steward all their lives, there's probably not much of a chance that they will be a good steward when they pass away. Now, everyone in the world, unless Jesus comes first, will be passing on their assets. Some will have a plan and some will not. Even here in the United States, there's only 50% of people in the United States that have a plan. And since Seventh-day Adventists are very much a part of their culture in the United States, I'm guessing that it's probably about the same for Seventh-day Adventists. Even though there is a service, most of the time, very low cost or free, that's offered to them to put together a plan, many people don't take advantage of it. So what I'd like to do is just kind of share with you a little bit about why I believe that we should be good stewards and why I have chosen to be a steward. And I think I can do that in about 15 minutes, and you can go eat. I was raised in Southern California, La Sierra, not too far from Loma Linda. Many of you know where that is. And I was born into a Seventh-day Adventist family. Now, my parents were both born into Seventh-day Adventist families. And their parents were born into Seventh-day Adventist families. But it wasn't till I was in my teen years that my parents understood this good news that Jesus Christ gives us, salvation free. And that as long as we keep our eyes focused on Jesus, that salvation is a gift to us. Now, as a teenager, you know, you hear your parents talking around the dinner table, or you hear them in conversation around your home, or talking with their friends, and you hear the words, but they a lot of times don't penetrate into what your thinking is. So in my case, I didn't understand that concept till I was about 19 years old. And it was as a result of listening to Morris Venden. Some of you may have heard Morris Venden preach, and the concept of righteousness by faith, that I understood that that is a free gift. And that Jesus died for me. And he would have come and died for me even if I had been the only person in need of salvation on this planet, which is just beyond what I could even imagine. That Jesus, the creator of the universe, the creator of everything in the universe, would have come and died for me. Now, after I understood that, I had a heart of gratitude that I wanted to live for Christ. And this was in my college years. And I remember very clearly that it was during this period of time that I took a class called Water Safety Instructor. And the teacher of this class was not a Seventh-day Adventist, but a Christian. And this person, over the weeks, several weeks that we had to take the class, understood that, came to the understanding that I was a Seventh-day Adventist from this little town out here that was a lot of Seventh-day Adventists in, Gentry, Arkansas. My parents had moved from California to Arkansas. And after the end of this class, this individual asked me, what do Seventh-day Adventists believe? I remember I'd been through Sabbath school. I'd been to church almost every week. I'd been through many evangelistic meetings. I'd been through Bible classes and weeks of prayer. And what I came up with was, well, we don't do this and we don't do that. You know, don'ts. And when I got home that evening, I decided, you know, that is not what I believe. I've got to figure this out for myself. And it was during about a year, I had, at college, that I decided I was going to read the little book, Steps to Christ. And I'd started reading that book many times, and somehow I was always a roadblock, it seemed like. I would fall asleep, and I'd never get past chapter 2 or 3. And I decided I'm going to read this book, Steps to Christ, if it kills me. It took me 1 year to read 113 pages because I wouldn't move any farther along in this book until I prayed through and understood what was being said. After that 1 year of study and prayer, that's when I can say I committed my life fully to God. And as a result of that understanding, I wanted to be a complete Christian, to out of a heart of gratitude, be faithful to God. Now, I think one of my gifts, when I take these spiritual gift tests, is giving. Because that was one of the things that I started to look at is stewardship. What about stewardship as part of a Christian's life? How does that work? Now, my training is in accounting. I have a BBA in accounting and an MBA in personal financial planning. So it's business. As an accountant, I cannot, on a T-chart, show you how 90% does better than 100%. It does not work logically or mathematically. But I can tell you from experience that being a faithful steward to God, that 90% goes places that you never imagined. And what I tell people is God can bless you in two ways. God can bless you by increasing your income, but He also can bless you by decreasing your expenses. I just moved here from Seattle, Washington. We were, just like you moved from Brazil, I moved from the other side of the United States, Seattle, Washington. And I sold a car just before I left, in fact, the day before I left, that had 340,000 miles on it and was still running perfectly. I would have taken off and, several hundred miles, not thought another thing about driving that car. God can bless in many different ways. In the area of planned giving, stewardship and planned giving, that's the way. We're kind of in an economic warfare is the way I look at it. Stewardship and planned giving are the two parts of the whole picture of stewardship. It is our job to try to keep funds and assets from going to Satan's side and channel them to God's side. In every war that is out there, there's always an economic component. In this conflict that we are engaged here on this planet for people's hearts, there is an economic component. That economic component we call stewardship. What I see is that stewardship in the narrow sense of the word, what you are here for a World Advisory for this week, and planned giving and trust services in the narrow sense of the word, The World Advisory last week deal with two separate parts of the overarching topic of stewardship. And I've put those two parts up here. You as stewardship, and as Elder Ed Reed said, that's your focus. That's your narrow focus, is stewardship. You're dealing with people's paychecks, tithes and offerings, and how they are handled each time they get a paycheck. Now that paycheck may be direct deposited into your bank. That paycheck may be handed to you in a paper and you go deposit it in the bank. It also may be when you milk a cow and you take the milk and you sell it or you barter it for something else. It could be when you sell a bull and get 3 cows. Whatever you call stewardship, whatever your economy is, stewardship is cash flow. That could be asset flow as well. And how people handle cash flow during their lifetimes, they end up with assets. Assets are a home, maybe a vehicle, could be money in the bank, it could be cows in a range, it could be chickens in a barn. Those are assets. They've taken their cash flow, they've invested it, and they acquire assets. So you're dealing with cash flow. Plan giving and trust services is dealing with assets. And we're dealing with assets after the person no longer needs them. That is plan giving and trust services. You'll probably hear me say plan giving more because I think every person, we're challenged to reach the world, and we're challenged also to have every member involved in that process of reaching the world. Plan giving is one of the ways that every member should be involved in keeping their assets to where they are being channeled towards the finishing of the work so Jesus can come. And that's the way I look at the overarching final act of stewardship that we call plan giving and trust services. So I think I did it. 15 minutes. And is there any questions? I guess what I would encourage you to do is, some of you are also plan giving and stewardship. If you're not, work with your plan giving people in your areas. I have no problem with you mentioning plan giving in your presentations if you have no problem with me mentioning stewardship in my presentations, because I believe that we both need to be working together to make sure that those funds do not go into Satan's camp, but go towards finishing the work, taking the 3 angels' message around the world. Thank you very much.